Advocate Ben Swart, welcome to Life in a Garden Online. It's fabulous to have you with us this evening. Thank you. Sorry, I had to chop and change the time for you and change the day because I double booked. Really a mess up, but I'm so glad that we're here now, and then only at 8 o'clock the lights are going out, so we better talk fast. How are you this evening?
I'm good, thanks, Mandi. It's nice to be on your show.
Well, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you very much. Ben, I want to go backwards a little bit and just ask about your background a little. Where did you come from? Besides your mom and dad, I mean, and the stalk.
I'm a Pretoria boy, born and bred, Afrikaans speaking. From a geographical point of view, I had a very narrow upbringing. I attended Pretoria East Primary School, and then I went a block down to Afrikaans Hoërseun School.
Yeah.
And when I was done with that, I crossed the street, went to the University of Pretoria. So I studied law. I did a BCom LLB degree. Afterwards, I lectured at mercantile law at the University of Pretoria for 4 years whilst completing my doctoral thesis in insolvency law. And thereafter, I joined the Pretoria Bar in 1991, and I've been there ever since.
1991. I just finished tech in 1991. So you're actually a doctor. Dr. Ben Swart.
Yeah, but you can call me Ben.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Not advocate or hanging judge or anything like that.
No one calls me doctor, or for that matter, advocate. So Ben will do just fine.
Thank you, Ben. Dr. Ben. Okay, I actually like just Ben. Big Ben. Can we call you Big Ben? I like Big Ben. Okay, so Ben, why climb a mountain in the first place? What is that? Don't tell me because it's there.
Yeah, no, I certainly won't do that. That will be plagiarism. Yeah, borrowed from Hillary. No, well, it's actually a funny story. I've always liked to do things, events, call them challenging events, if you like. I did the Comrades for the first time when I was 22, and there afterwards I did triathlons, and at one stage I was quite involved in canoeing. And then in 2004, well, I've never climbed a mountain in 2004, and I got an invite from a friend of mine, Rudolf Pretorius, who said they're going to climb a mountain in Russia, and asked me would I want to come along, and I said yes.
Did you know what you were in for? I mean, did you have any idea?
No idea whatsoever. It's, the mountain is Everest, and we went there and managed to summit. And afterwards, I heard that Everest is the highest mountain in Europe. Geographically speaking, everything west of the Caucasus is part of Europe, and Everest in the Caucasus. And I afterwards heard that I've climbed the highest mountain in Europe, and one of the 7 summits. It's actually the first time when I heard about the 7 summits being the quest, if you like, to climb the highest peak on each continent. And obviously at that time, I never, in my wildest dreams, thought I'll try and achieve the 7 summits. But that was how I landed on mountains, by chance in 2004, as a result of an invitation. I mean, at that time, I haven't even climbed a peak in the Drakensberg.
But what was your level of fitness? And I mean, what did you experience?
I always have because of what I do, be it canoeing or triathlon, or when I still used to run marathons, I always have a very good level of fitness, which I think is quite important. Obviously, fitness cannot acclimatize you for altitude, but it certainly helps, especially on a long expedition. Everest isn't that long expedition. Everest is, I would say, like Kilimanjaro on steroids. It's a 5,600 meter peak, but it's snow capped, and you walk with crampons, so it's more difficult than Kilimanjaro, but it's a good first mountain if you're thinking of doing the 7 summits. Obviously, Kilimanjaro is the best first mountain, but Elbrus after that, I think, would be the best one to do first.
The same kind of breathing problems? Or is that an experience on any mountain?
Yeah, that was my first experience, and it planted a seed, and nothing happened for about 2 years. And then another trip came up to Aconcagua, which is the highest peak in South America. And once again, I said I'm in, and we went there and did Aconcagua, which is very fortunate to summit the first time. It's a mountain with a very bad summit record because of the summit day, which is you have to traverse a very exposed part called the Grand Traverse, and if the wind can blow there, and many times, well, if it blows, it's simply not possible to summit. But anyway, we went there and it worked out well. And then by that time, I've done 2 of the 7 summits, and still at that stage, I never thought of my wildest dream that I'll try and complete them, because obviously to do that, one would have to do Everest, and I never even thought of doing Everest.
So what happened after South America?
Well, after South America, another trip came up.
Where did we go next?
Yeah, and this time the possibility of Denali, the highest peak in North America. It's in Alaska. It's the colonial name is Mount McKinley. I refer to it as Denali, the indigenous name. And someone mooted the idea of going to Denali, and we put a little team together, and we went there. And it's actually come back to work.
Sorry.
Hello.
Sorted. Don't worry.
Okay. Is my signal still good there?
Your signal's still good, loud and clear.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So we went to Denali. You have to fly. It's like a 36-hour journey to get to Anchorage, and then from there you travel, I think, about 100 miles. I refer to miles in America, up to a place called Talkeetna, which is the gateway to Denali. And then you fly in with a Otter. It's a Canadian plane, and it's equipped to land on ice. And you land there on the bottom end of a glacier, and they kick you out of the plane, because the pilot has to get back as soon as possible, and they kick you out with your backpack and a sled. And it's a difficult mountain because there's no assistance in the form of yaks or porters or Sherpas. You're dependent on yourself, so you're continuously hauling kit up and down the mountain, caching kit, going down again. And the weather is atrociously bad there, which also makes for a very poor summit rate. I think the summit rate there is around about 50%. But once again, things worked out, and we summited at Denali, and probably thinking back, I think that is, if someone asked me of the 7 summits, which one was the most enjoyable, I'd say it must be Denali, in the sense of difficulty and beauty and everything. It was just a magnificent place to go to. Yeah, so that was Denali, and by that time, obviously, the thought of going for the 7 summits was there. Obviously, as one goes along, you get more skilled. You start believing in your capabilities, and the plant, the seed of climbing Everest was planted. I didn't know when or where, but the idea was there. And then the next one was, let me just get them in the right sequence. Yeah, the next one was.
Sorry, before you get there, what was the height of the 3 that you'd climbed so far? What were the highlights?
I beg your pardon?
Of the 3 mountains that you'd already climbed? What were the highlights of any?
I'd say definitely the trip to Denali, the whole thing, you know, going there to Alaska, flying in with that otter, landing on a glacier, scaling the mountain, and then we afterwards, after having summited, we had a couple of days left, so I took a train to a place called Swart. I went on a boat. I caught silver salmon and halibut, which is a big ugly fish, but really delicious. I mean, caught silver salmon, halibut. Went with my fish to a restaurant. They grilled it for me, and I enjoyed my own fish over a bottle of Chardonnay. And I mean, Denali was certainly at that stage the highlight of the 3.
Okay. Were you in Alaska during a full daylight time, or was it summer, I suppose?
Yeah, and it was high summer, and we while still in Anchorage, our guide came for a kit inspection, and I had my petrol headlight there, neatly packed out on my bed with my other kit, and he just laughed and he said, "No, you won't need that. You can leave that. You won't need a light," and that is indeed the case. You don't need a light. It's light all the time, the whole day, at any time. You can do without a torch.
And then we moved on, and we went where next?
Yeah, the next one was Vinson in Antarctica, which is also a fascinating trip. It's one of those trips. It's an open-ended trip. So you book a flight there, and I'll explain shortly how you get there, and you book a ticket back, but it's just to have a ticket back. But you know, knowing that there's a good possibility that you'll have to change it, because to get there, you must get to Santiago. Typically, it will be not Buenos Aires, Sao Paulo. You fly Sao Paulo,
Brazil,
Santiago,
yeah.
And then from Santiago, you'll take a commercial flight to a place called Punta Arenas, which is way south in Patagonia, on the Strait of Magellan. And then you book there into a hotel, and you'll get a full briefing, and you'll go on standby to fly to Antarctica in a Russian plane called an Illusion. And sometimes, you know, we thought when a plane doesn't arrive, we refer to it as an illusion. But anyway, then you go on standby. You must be on hour standby, and then they wait for the weather to not to clear, but the pilot must have a visual contact with the landing strip. It's a blue ice landing strip in Antarctica, and there cannot be a crosswind. So, and that can mean it's possible to get stuck there in Punta Arenas for a week, sometimes 10 days. You just have to wait it out. In our case, we actually, I think within a day or so, we flew, and we then landed at the sort of the tourism hub in Antarctica. It was a place called Patriot Hills. It's now changed they moved it to another place called Union Glacier. And from there, everything happens. All the tourist activities happen from there, the tourism activities in Antarctica. And Antarctica is seriously regulated, probably one of the most regulated places, or probably the most regulated place I've ever been to. So once you're there, you have to get to Vinson Base Camp, Vinson being the highest peak in Antarctica. And to go there, once again, you go with an Otter, which is a small aircraft. And what happened with us is we landed at Patriot Hills, and immediately the weather closed in, and we simply couldn't fly to base camp. So, which meant we were stuck there at Patriot Hills in our little camp there, I think for 7-8 days, and every day you wake up, you see it's still snowing, can't see a thing, and you read books, you listen to music, you play cards, and you wait it out. And then finally our turn came, and we managed to get to base camp of Vincent. And once again, the plane drops you on the bottom end of a glacier, and it's the same thing. You go up with your pack and sled with all your gear. And it's not a very high mountain. Elbrus is 5-6. Vincent is even lower than Elbrus. But because of the weather problems, it's a rush job. So you don't acclimatize properly. Yeah, it's a rush job. And I mean, they want to get you to the summit as quickly as possible. And I actually found it, not having been acclimatized properly, I found it actually quite a difficult climb. And it's of the 7, the coldest place I've been. It was -40 on the summit. When we summited, so everything simply freezes up. If your nose is running, it freezes. You look like a
like a baby snotty thing.
Caveman, yeah, with your. But a wonderful experience. I think when we did it, I think not even 1,000 people have managed to scale Mount Vincent, or Vincent Massif, not Mount Vincent, Vincent Massif, which is what it's called, which is quite a unique experience to be there. And then we flew back, and luckily we didn't have weather problems, and back to Punta Arenas, and then that was Vincent. So that was 4 out of the 7, and at that time I deliberately decided I'll leave Kilimanjaro for last, to see if it works out, if I can complete the circuit here in Africa, the highest peak in Africa. And I deliberately decided not to do Kilimanjaro afterwards. So then what happened was, I think in the beginning of 2009, Sean Disney, with whom of Adventure Dynamics, I've done most of the climbs with him.
Yeah.
Sean Disney called a meeting, and he said, well, there's a trip going to Everest in 2010. And who wants to sign up? And it's funny, by that time, the people who attended the meeting, all of them, we've climbed at different stages. We've climbed, actually, I knew all of them, and it ended up with including Sean and 8 of us signing up for the trip, and I'll get to that later. But so Everest was there on the cards then for 2010, and then whilst all of this was happening, Elsie beside note, a friend of mine, I've climbed with her. Elsie still needs. She was due to do Everest this year to complete the 7 summits, which were made after Mandi Ramsden, the first woman in South Africa to finish the circuit.
Oh,
and then
fantastic.
because of COVID, it got postponed. But Elsie then told me there's a trip going to Carsten's Pyramid, which is the highest mountain in Oceania, the Australian region, if you like. And if I can just digress for a moment, there are 2 schools of thought. The one school is that you take the region Oceania, and then Carstens will be the highest mountain. Carstens is in Papua, which is just right north of Australia. And there's another school of thought which says you take Australia up here and then climb the highest mountain there. And the highest mountain in Australia is, I think it's called Kaziosni, something like that.
Oh, I thought it was a rock.
Yeah, it's like a hill in the Magaliesberg, and for me, sort of the decider of where to go was when Sean Disney, he's done this mountain in Australia before, and he said on his way up, he encountered a nun coming down from the summit in Takis. So I decided I'll rather go for Carsten's pyramid in Papua, which is part of Indonesia, and it's actually it's different than all the other peaks in the Seven Summit because it's a 1-day rock climb. It's a proper rock climb, rope assisted. Just to sort of give context to it, on your way down, you have 20 abseil pitches. So it's just one abseil after the other. And once you get to base camp, unless you get sick, you'll summit. There are no real altitude or weather issues. But the problem there is to get to base camp. Because right under base camp is a massive, massive open cast gold mine. The biggest, I think, probably one of the biggest open cast gold mines in the world, if not the biggest. I think it's called Freeport McMoran or McMoran or something like that. And because most mountaineers are greenies, they're very critical of the mine, and because of that, the mine hates mountaineers. So it's impossible to get access through the mine. They simply don't allow it. So that means if you want to get there through the mine, you have to pay a bribe and get smuggled through the mine, and
Oh no,
get thrown
man!
into
Just like Africa, yes.
the Indonesian jail.
Yeah, I can think of nothing worse.
The other possibility is, the other possibility is to track through the jungle, which has its own risks because even today there's serious tribal strife in Papua. Well, in the 60s, many people were still cannibals there. And so they have a permit system. You work on a permit and you walk from one village to another, and they won't allow you to go further if your permit hasn't been stamped at the previous village. And what often happens is that the tribes start fighting, and then they simply cancel your permit, and you're not allowed to go further. And the third possibility, what we opted for, is to fly from a place about 100 kilometers away, a coastal town called Nabire, to fly in with a helicopter, a Bell, which we thought would be the safest option, and everything worked out well. We managed. I mean, it takes you about 2 days from Bali to get to Nabire, and we saw the chopper standing there, and we thought, well, the next day we might fly, and then it turned out the chopper got grounded. They probably didn't pay a bribe, I don't know, but we got stuck there in a place. It's a hotel that wouldn't even get a star here in South Africa. It'll get a minus something. It's a dump of notes. So we got stuck there, old Elsie and I, for 7 days. We've been lying, telling us stories every day, and we were just about to give up when the chopper got cleared. And then there's only one pilot prepared to fly that altitude, Captain Harrow. And then he disappeared for the weekend. We had to wait for him, and we decided if nothing happens to Monday, we're out of there. And then Monday things happened. The chopper was ready, Captain Harrow was there, and we managed to fly in and land there at base camp, and then scaled the summit, which was a fantastic experience. And that was then, that was number 5 then, and then the next year, on 1 April 2010, we left for Everest.
I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why? Why is he doing this? What is wrong with this man? Why would anybody do that to themselves?
Well, you get sucked into it. Well, I must say, I enjoy a mountaineering expedition. I always say it's like almost like a cheap way of getting into space. You for a time you totally remove yourself from society. You're out there, you don't have any contact, you only have with the outside world unless you want to utilize your sat phone, your satellite phone. but you're out there and you read books, you listen to music, you live a simple life, and so it appeals to me. And then in addition, you get sucked into the seven summits like a, you know, a moth gets drawn to a flame. You know, before you realize you're into it, and that's it. You go for it.
But in 2010, you weren't married yet, is that right?
Yeah, I was divorced for many years. My son is now, he turned 22 today, and I got divorced when he was 3. So I've been divorced for many years, which obviously made the decisions easier. So I remarried after Everest, but at that time I was divorced.
But were you involved at that point? Because
No,
I mean,
wasn't.
I know that I would turn around to any boyfriend and say, dude, just make sure you come back. You know, like it's madness.
Yeah, I only met Anelda, and my wife. I only met her after Everest.
I bet she was relieved. So what kind of preparation goes into an Everest expedition?
Oh, it's massive. You know, it's hard to actually to grasp the logistics involved. So it's the planning, the logistical planning started more than a year in advance, and then so Sean from this side would hook up with a company in Kathmandu, and then they would source Sherpas. The decision had to be made on how much oxygen we're going to use. At some stage, you're sending a whole barrel of equipment. You know, these blue barrels, you often see them in, well, any mountaineering expedition movie. You'll see a blue barrel. You send them in advance to, and they must find their way to base camp. I must just point out, we decided, or our trip was on the northern side of Everest, the Chinese side, the Tibetan side. Tibet's now part of China, and the more popular route is from the south, from Nepal, where you'll fly from Kathmandu. You'll fly to a place called Lukla, and you'll do this lovely hike that people that do the Everest base camp track will go south. They'll fly to Lukla and they'll track to base camp, and people at summit will do the same. You have this lovely hike to base camp south, and I'd say probably 90% of the expeditions go south. You have a dangerous part in the beginning at base camp, a broken glacier called the Khumbu Ice Fall. There's been serious incidents there, especially lately. But you have an easier summer day. The only real obstacle on summer day is the Hillary Steps. Whilst on the north side, you have 3 serious obstacles, especially what a place called the second step, which is it's quite a daunting obstacle. And people always ask me, well, if that's so, why do you go north? Well, and the north is very barren and ugly. People ask me, why did you go north? And then the answer is, because Sean Disney said, we're going north, he's done the south. So the trip was booked north, so I had to go north. Yeah, but I mean, as far as the planning is concerned, so it's massive. Getting everything ready, your barrels, and then you'll take 2 duffel bags with you as well. A detailed kit list. You must get a down suit. There's only 2 types of boots that you can use, and obviously it's essential that your kit must be up to standard. So we got everything ready, and we left the 1st of April 2010, we flew to Kathmandu. So whether you go north or south, you'll go to Kathmandu. Kathmandu's the gateway to Everest. And
Okay.
you'll stay there for a while, 5 or 6 days, to do admin, get your permits ready. And then from there, you'll, if you go south, you'll fly to Lukla. Even if you go north, the usual way is you'll travel up to a place called Zanmu, which is on the border of China and Nepal, and you'll cross a place called the Freedom Bridge, and you'll enter China, and you'll make your way up to base camp. And but we opted to, being there, we decided to fly to Lhasa, which is the capital of Tibet, and then travel from there to to base camp, which I think was a very good decision. It's a fascinating place. But getting from and on the north side, you can actually drive right up to base camp. But getting there takes days because of the altitude difference. Kathmandu is only it's 1,300 meters, which is actually slightly lower than Pretoria, and a couple of 100 meters lower than Johannesburg. And even going to Lhasa, getting out of the plane, you have to stay in Lhasa for 3-4 days. The Lhasa is just I think under 4,000 meters. And then from there, it takes you a couple of days to get to Everest Base Camp, which is 5,200 meters. It's simply not possible to drive there in one day. You'll die if you do that. You have to take it in phases in order to acclimatize and then get to base camp.
Oh, you're stopping.
What would you like to hear next? What happened from base camp?
Sorry. I was just like listening. Okay, I'm like, okay, instantly stop. Sorry. So then,
yeah.
How long did it take you to get from base camp to summit? And I mean, like, what is it? So you like, from the last stop before you summit, did you like quickly wake up in the morning, run to the top, run back, and then come down the mountain? How does it work?
Yeah, it's actually it's fascinating if you you have a program. A lot of people think you just hang there and then go for the summit. That's not how it works. You have a acclimatization program that's worked out. I'll get to that now. But to answer your question, it'll take you 5 weeks. You'll spend 5 weeks on the mountain in order to prepare for 4 days of climbing when you actually go for the summit, and all in an attempt to acclimatize as well as possible. And the problem is that humans can only live up to about 4,500, 200 meters indefinitely. There's a monastery on the northern side, the Rambo something monastery, where people live. But even if the women get birth, they have to go down lower, and you won't find traces of permanent civilization higher than 5,000, which means the moment you go higher than that, you actually you can't stay there indefinitely. So you have the problem now. You're already high at that altitude. Now you have to acclimatize. So how it will work on the northern side is you'll get to base camp, and then just getting at base camp, you'll wait there for about 5-6 days. Then you'll make your first trip to advanced base camp, which is on the north side, 6,400 meters, with 500 meters higher than the summit of Kilimanjaro, just to contextualize that. So your first time, it will take you 2 days. You'll sleep over at an interim camp on your way there. You'll sleep over, and then you'll go from there to advanced base camp. Once you get to advanced base camp, same story. You'll hang there at advanced base camp for about 5 days, and then you'll try and get to the North Col, which is about 7,100 meters for the first time, what they call your first rotation. And the plan will be to get to the North Col and come back and go back to advanced base camp. When we did it, we went to advanced base camp the first round, and en route to the North Col, we were just getting ready. The North Col is basically where the hiking ends and the climbing starts. You start wearing crampons, you go on a fixed rope. And as we started, we got news of an avalanche, and we could actually hear the avalanche, and we heard that 2 Hungarians got trapped in the avalanche. The one lived, the other one died, but that caused a route change, and we actually had to abort. We couldn't make the North Col the first time, and we had to abort and go back to advanced base camp, where we stayed for a night or 2, and then we went all the way back to base camp. And there, same story, wait for 5, 6, 7 days, and then we went back for the second time to advanced base camp. And this time, after having spent 5-6 days there, we managed to get up the North Col. And there we stayed on the North Col for 2 nights without oxygen, which was hell. It was pure hell just staying there. You're totally out of breath, but all in an attempt to acclimatize as well as possible. Then we went back to base camp, and then we actually had a bit of time on hand, waiting for the weather window. I'll get to that now. And in order to rest, we actually went right off the mountain for a couple of days. We crossed the Tibetan Plateau in rented land cruisers, and we went all the way to Zanmu, which is at about 2,400 meters, and stayed there for 3 nights in order to rest. And then we went back and started watching the weather and how it works on Everest. And that's a problem with Everest. Everest lies in the middle of in winter. Everest lies in the middle of a jet stream, which is, I mean, continuous massive winds that big airline carriers utilize to save fuel, which obviously means you cannot get close to the summit. And in summer, when winter turns into summer, you get monsoon season with massive rain lower down and massive snowfalls, which once again mean you cannot get to the summit. But in between, there will be a weather window with this changeover process that will allow it to get to the summit. And that's the problem with Everest. And that's why every year you see these, especially on the south side, pictures of the massive queues, because that's the only time that you can get to the summit. And everyone, you can, next year, can look out for it. Around about 1st of April, expeditions will start leaving. You'll start picking up news of people on Everest. So then we went back from Zanmu to base camp, followed the weather. We had very sophisticated weather assistance. We had satellite internet. It's so important to get the right weather info. And we made a call on when the window will be there, and decided that we're going to summit on the 24th of May, and then from there worked it backwards. And how it then work is as follows. So you go once again from base camp to advanced base camp. This time you acclimatize, it'll only take you 1 day. Then from advanced base camp, that's where the summit trip really starts. So you go from there to the North Col. And when you're at the North Col, you'll start using supplement oxygen. And just to explain that, it's not like scuba dive oxygen where your cylinder is the sole source of oxygen. You breathe normally and you get supplemented at different levels with oxygen. If you sleep, it'll be on level 1, and if you go for the summit, it'll be on level 4 to help you. Okay. But anyway, so you'll spend the night, 1 night at the North Col, about 7,100 meters, and you start using oxygen. And then from there, you'll go to Camp 1, which is about 7,600 meters, and you'll spend the night there. And then from there, you'll go to Camp 2, which is at about 8,300 meters. But even with oxygen, you cannot sleep there. It's just a stay over camp where you rest. You arrive there, and we arrived at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you go in your tent with your Sherpa, and you wait on the radio for the call as to when you're going to start going for the summit. In our case, the message came that we'll start walking at 11 o'clock in the evening.
That's the middle of the night.
From there, yeah, in the night. So, and you do that to make sure that you reach the summit early in the morning, in case something goes wrong, that you have a whole day to get back. And you must get back to at least 7,600 meters. You cannot sleep at 8,300 meters, you'll die. So we waited there in our tents. I actually said it's North Col and then Camp 2 and then Camp 3, just to correct that. So we arrived at Camp 3 and we waited, and the call came from Sean that we'll start at 11 o'clock. And it's obviously very important to be punctual on these trips.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You can't have people standing around in snow and
They
ice.
stand in the snow and wait. Yeah.
They just start walking. Yeah. So we started at 11 in a blizzard, in a full blizzard, and it's very, very scary and daunting. You start with your headlight, and you slowly make your way up a very, very slow pace. And at one stage, you'll see these people ahead of you. You'll see the lights going up the second step, which is a very, very, very daunting obstacle. And it's partially ladder assisted, and you go up there, and then from there slowly carry on. And it's only a couple of kilometers, but it takes you. At some stage, you started getting light again, and I remember it was just our team. We couldn't see anybody else, and I thought we're going too slow. We're not gonna make it, and we carried on. At that stage, our team, it's impossible to keep the whole team together. Sean, Disney, and Lance Mitch were ahead of us, and the others were sort of together, and we then carried on. And I remember looking up and still seeing a huge chunk of mountain, and then realizing, well, if you want to get to the highest point on earth, you have to get higher than that, and you think it's simply not going to happen. It's not possible. And at some stage, we turned left into a gully and had a last rest, and then turned right again. And I remember coming over a little hill, and I saw a lot of people congregated, and I sort of knew that must be the summit. And but I just checked with my Sherpa and made sure that was indeed the summit. And he said it was, and then slowly made our way up. And so what you have now is you have people from the south and the north. It's window time, so it's actually quite congested. A lot of activity there on the summit.
We're having a party on the top of the world.
Flags, the Tibetan. Yeah, but you're too tired to have a party. I always tell people, it's not a feeling of shouting out and going hooray. You just sit there and you're grateful that it worked out for you to be there. And you spend about a half an hour there, taking about 1,000 pictures just to make sure that you have them. And yeah, and things actually, for me, things started falling apart right there on the summit. It started off with this. I was a photo of me with a beaming summiteer, and then half an hour later, I was sitting, was looking at one of these druggies that you get at street corners asking for money for drugs. I was just sitting like this, and unbeknown to me, I got a cerebral edema, which means you get fluid in your brain, which is one of the hazards of high altitude climbing, that or a pulmonary edema. So I was later diagnosed with a cerebral edema, and that causes you to become disorientated. I mean, people can do the weirdest things if they get edemas. Some people start taking off their clothes in the ice. It can cause blindness. And the Sherpas could see something was wrong with me, and then I slowly started making my way down. I was assisted where they could assist me. Can't remember everything properly, and we arrived at 8,300 meters, and I mean, we've been told over and over again, you cannot stay here, you'll die if you stay here. And what I then did is I chased the Sherpas away and told them I'll spend the night there, and because I'm tired and go back
down in the morning.
Yeah, and they all devoted Buddhists. They're not confrontational people, and they actually left. And I thought of some later on, but they abandoned me, but they didn't. They managed to get hold of Australian guy, one of the big players there on the north side, Duncan Chessel, who take groups up. He's Australian and like a tough character, and they actually, Duncan was on his way up with the group, and they told Duncan of my plans. And Duncan Chessel then went from tent to tent, and these tents spread out all over the place, and he didn't stop until he found me. And he, and you know, Australians, they're not, unlike Buddhists, they don't mind confrontation. And he told me in his best Australian that I'm going to get the F of the mountain now. And then I'm going to go to at least Camp 2 and manage to get hold of our assistant guide, Barend Engelbrecht. And that saved my life. Because we made our way down, I was in a sorry state, and what happened is, it was an overcast day, which actually means that the heat that there is kept in. The same as you get in there when you go to the bushveld. If it's overcast, it's relatively warm, which means it was about on the summit about -10, which isn't very cold. So I only had my fleece gloves on with artificial chemical hand warmers, not artificial, chemical hand warmers, which was sufficient. And Barend and I could actually see the overnight camp at 7,600 when a massive windstorm came up, which probably caused the temperature to drop from -10 to -30 in 5 minutes. And what one will then do is your fingers will start hurting, and you'll take out your down mitts and you'll put them on. But when you have a cerebral edema, you don't realize, you don't feel the pain or the cold. You're disoriented, and so I never, when the wind came up, and I never put my mitts on, and
sorry, can I stop you there for 1 minute? Sorry, I just want to say that at 8 o'clock, if Eskom runs according to schedule, my power is going to go out. So what I will do is I will switch to my phone, and so I've scheduled a meeting to start at 8 o'clock from my phone. So if this cuts out, everybody just log back in, please, so we can carry on, if you don't mind carrying on for a little bit longer.
Yes, must I log on this?
Exactly the same password, everything's the same. Okay. Just come back in, and I'll restart another meeting, but do it from my phone, so that we don't have a problem. Because it'll suddenly cut out, and then I'll say, oh well, she doesn't know what she's doing, because most of the time she doesn't, but that's beside the point. Okay, so I think we're getting to quite an exciting part in your story here, aren't we?
Yes.
You take your gloves off.
Yeah, well, my gloves were off, the wind came up, and I didn't put my mitts on, and I realized something was wrong when I couldn't open the zip of the tent, and Barend opened it and pushed me into the tent, and when I took my gloves off, my fleece gloves, I realized that something was wrong, that I got frostbite, and I realized that at that stage that there would be consequences. I didn't know the extent, and what you do if you get frostbite, the only thing you can really do if you do it quickly enough is to get hold of warm water, not boiling water, warm water, and literally put your hands on it and defrost them. But the problem was that camp is just an overnight camp. There's no real infrastructure. And probably if we took some trouble, we would have managed to get warm water. But by that time, I'd been awake for probably about 36 hours. I mean, I simply didn't care. I decided I'll worry about it later, and then put my hands in the sleeping bag and slept. And luckily woke up the next morning. And then I thought I had this nightmare, and getting frostbite, took my fingers out, and there it was. So I managed to I was still in a very bad state, and we actually regrouped with the rest of the guys at the North Col and made our way back. I was faltering that I had to get a adrenaline type of injection at some stage, and then got treatment at Advanced Base Camp, where they put bandages on and gave me tablets. But I mean, the die was cast by then, and that ultimately then resulted in me having 5 fingers amputated.
Can you show us?
when I arrived back, you can actually see the
Eish.
yeah.
Well, at least it's nice and symmetrical looking.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was you have to, if you get frostbite, you have to wait a while. Obviously, I wouldn't dare to go for an operation, an amputation in Kathmandu, but in any event, you have to wait. So I came back here and went to see a hand orthoped, and who told me they're gonna give me the chop, and then. And so about 10 days later, I had the operation. The fingers got amputated.
Oh man, that's I just, you see, and me, I'm going like, why is he doing this? Why would he do it? And then of course you did a gentle walk on Kili.
Yeah. So and then so that was 6 out of the 7, and then as it happened in 2010, I met Anelda, who later would become my wife, and I worked out that my son, he was when I came back, he was 11, and I worked out that by 2011 he'd be 12, which is sort of the minimum age you can go to Kili. And then in 2012 I completed the 7 summits on Kilimanjaro with Anelda and my son, which was really special.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. It's now 10 years since Everest. What kind of lessons can you look back and say that you learned?
Well, what I think probably the most important thing is you know that old cliche that live every day as if it's your last. You know, it unfortunately it's true. You know, and we have to remind ourselves of that the whole day, and every time continuously. And you know, once again, I realized how quickly things can change. You know, and one mustn't, if they change, you mustn't have regrets. And it's we all know about it, but we don't always practice it. And I think that's probably the most important thing that I learned from Everest. And what I also realized, you know, I think after the amputations, I thought, well, this is just about the end of everything. Everything is over now. We won't be able to do mountain biking again. And then you realize that actually nothing was over, nothing changed. You know, that thing of always look around you, look at other people, then you realize you're losing a couple of digits is actually nothing. And I always say that people ask me what changed, and I say the only thing that really changed is that I can no longer invite people for a light finger lunch. No one accepts.
That's a very dark sense of humor, Ben Swart. There are 2 questions here, which I didn't have a chance to ask you. What is the summit rate of Everest?
The summit rate of it's difficult to say. You know, I actually don't have the stats at hand, but I think the summit rate will be better than places like Denali and Aconcagua because of the window. And if the window is there, the window will come. I mean, if you hang out at Everest long enough, the window will be there and will come, and that's what people do. They wait until it's there, and so it'll definitely be. I think it'll probably be around about 60% or so. But I stand.
It's quite high.
Yeah, it's quite high, but because obviously people that go there, I mean, most of them will be well prepared. Well, they're supposed to be well prepared and fit and well equipped. That's what I would think, but once again, I stand corrected. I'm not sure about that.
Would you ever go back to summit from the southern side?
No, I wouldn't go back to do the southern side. The southern side. I'd rather do. There are 14 mountains in the world higher than 8,000 meters. Everest obviously being the highest. So the 14 8,000. So all in the Himalayas. So I'd rather do another 8,000. In fact, in 2012, I did the mountain next to Everest, Cho Oyo, which is the 6th highest mountain in the world. So instead of doing Everest again, I'll rather do one of the other 8,000.
Even without fingers.
Yeah, without fingers. Well, I did show oil without fingers, and
See, life goes on.
it was okay.
And then, did you get sponsorship for Everest, or did you self-fund? Because that couldn't
No,
have been
no.
an easy, cheap expedition.
Yeah, no, it's a seriously expensive expedition, self-funded. There's no sponsorship.
So clearly, being a lawyer or an advocate is a really good idea.
Well, it was, being I was single at that stage, which makes it quite affordable. My wife mustn't hear this.
Yeah, I promise I won't tell her. Okay. Ben, I can. You don't mind if I share all the photos you sent me with the group later?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ben? Because it looks like we might actually make it with 1 minute to spare. Otherwise, we will come back. One of the things I wanted to ask you, there's my alarm clock telling me it's exactly 8 o'clock. Let's see how City of Joburg is running on time. So one of the things I wanted to ask you now is if your son turned around and said, Dad, I want to climb Everest and I want to do the north side, what would you say?
I'll certainly encourage him to do it. It's for me, it's of crucial importance to have experiences, whether good or bad. I think that's at the end of the day. Your experiences ultimately cause you to become what you are. And if he does that, I'll tell him by all means, and I'll encourage him.
Okay. You're right. So now we still mountain bike, we free dive. We didn't even discuss free diving. What do you do now for fun? I mean, you've killed it all, So what is the most exciting thing you would do now as a married man with children?
No, there's still mountains to climb. I'm sort of dabbling into free diving. I'm an amateur free diver, but I mean it's something nice to do and to see if one get better. And there are more mountains to do. I had a bit of a health. Actually, in 2016, we climbed the highest volcano on Earth. It's in the Atacama Desert, also in Chile.
That's the picture I shared with the group.
It's only 80 meters lower than the highest mountain in South America, Aconcagua. It's almost 7,000 meters, and there's fascinating place here. Atacama's I think it's the driest place on Earth. And you get these volcanoes, all snow-capped with their own weather system. But anyway, we went there and we climbed and we summited a place called, it's Ojos del Solados is the place. And on our way back, I started getting problems walking with difficulty. And it turned out that my hip had problems. And I went for MR, and actually turned out that both hips were fairly stuffed. And I sort of managed to wing it, and I got to a stage where I couldn't walk properly. And then when COVID came, I decided to go, well, now it's the time to sort that out. So I had a double hip replacement within a month. I had the left hip on 2 May, replaced, and the right one on 4 June. And it actually went very well. My rehab's gone well, so
the bionic man.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a huge success. So I'll certainly like to see when it's possible to get to do another mountain again. I miss that. I love to do that, and I'm doing a lot of mountain biking and swimming, and a bit of free diving. So I'm keeping myself busy and out of trouble.
Do you know anything about the Lion 500 challenge?
No.
Apparently, I'm just sort of looking into it because thinking about chatting to some of the guys. Costa Papangiorgio something, nice Greek name that I'm going to mess up. I think he's climbed to Lion's Head 500 times or something. He set this challenge to raise money for charity. So if you Google Lion 500, you'll see it. So maybe you want to have a look at doing something like that. It's a little bit different. I know it's not a huge climb, but you have to do it something like 500 times. And I don't know if there's a specified time or anything, but it looks interesting and a crazy sort of thing to be doing.
No,
And
I'll
something
look
that the
into it.
blind scooter guy is going to be doing. I know. Have you heard of him, the blind scooter guy?
No.
Ex-Joburg boy living in Cape Town now, who did a Vespa tour with friends through Africa and got a virus on the back of his corneas.
Yeah.
And by the time they brought him home and diagnosed it, he'd lost his sight completely. And he's now still being doing this whole adventure stuff and going all over the place. And he's written 2 books. I'll send you some information on him because I'm going to be interviewing him probably next week. But
that's another example that I mentioned here. You think you think it's bad with you, and then you look around and you see what happened to other people.
Is that your wife or God you're talking to? Or the same thing?
That's my wife.
Ben, before we get shut down by Joburg Power, I want to say thank you so much for talking to us this evening. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. I could chat to you some more. And happy birthday to your son. Exactly. Barbara says, have you thought of writing a book?
No, well, maybe. Well, I have notes of most of the stuff, and maybe later.
A memoir.
No immediate plans. Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, people love to read these stories and find out what makes psycho people like you tick, Yeah. Everybody, while we still have power, let me say goodnight properly. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Ben, it's been fantastic. See you again soon, and I'll send you some information on the blind scooter guy. Go well, everyone. See you tomorrow night.
Thank
Bye.
you, Mandy. Bye-bye.